Read out what I'm supposed to read out for you. That is the Planning Committee where members of the public are present. Welcome to this meeting of the Planning Committee. We are recording the meeting this evening using our webcasting system. The webcast will be transmitted live and will also be available on the Council's website following the meeting. Generally, the public seating area are not filmed. However, by entering the meeting room and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting or training purposes. I have the discretion to stop or suspend the recording of the meeting should this be necessary to maintain the proper running of the meeting. This is a meeting of the Council held in public. It is not a public meeting. All mobile devices should be switched off or set to silent so that the meeting is not interrupted by ringtones. Anyone else intending to film or audio record any part of the meeting is asked to do so in a manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Please refrain from filming the public gallery or public speakers on items. If the fire alarm sounds, leave by the nearest exit and officers will advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. Procedure for each item. The planning officer will present their report and committee members will ask any points of clarification. The meeting will allow those who have given notice that they wish to address the committee on a particular application to do so. Each person will be invited to come forward to the table at the front of the public seating area and will have 3 minutes to give their views. Once all comments have been given, the meeting will then continue for members of the committee to discuss the applications and reach a decision. No further comments may be made by members of the public. Thank you. I'll go on to item number 1, which is apologies for absence. Thank you. Thank
you, Chair. Alex has been held up. There's been apparently a tree has fallen on the line at Shenfield, so he's had to get the bus from Shenfield to Wickford, so he'll be running about 35 minutes late.
No. At the briefing, he did say he wasn't going to be present for this one.
No. As I said, he will be turning up in 35 minutes to attend the meeting.
Declarations of interest and lobbying. Have any at all? No. I wish to make on item 4 a non-pecuniary interest, which is to do with a doctor's surgery. So that's the only one. Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to say that I have been lobbied on item 4, I think it is. The Wash Road application by email. I haven't read the contents of the email and I've come to the meeting with an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, would you be able to confirm that you are also able to bring an open mind to the meeting?
Yes, I have an open mind at this meeting. Item 3, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. I have the previous meeting minutes here. All those in favour, please show. So that's unanimous apart from Councillor Myers, okay? We go straight into item 4, which...
I'd just like to bring to the committee's attention that we had a late submission for a written statement by the MP Richard Holden. We've consulted with the chairman, who I believe is using her discretion to allow it, and Councillor Sargent will be reading it out at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go straight into item 4 then. Hybrid planning application for up to 2 up to 400 residential dwellings, comprising detailed planning permission for Phase 1 for the erection of 65 residential dwellings, Class C3, including associated landscaping amenity and play spaces, parking provisions, new pedestrian and vehicular access, sustainable drainage, attenuation basin and associated works, and outline planning permission, all matters reserved except means of access, for the erection of up to 335 residential dwellings, Class C3, a community use facility, Class E, landscaping, informal, sports pitches, spaces, amenity and play spaces, parking, provisions and vehicular access, sustainable drainage, allotments and associated works at land to the south of Wash Road, Langdon. Can I ask Adele Lawrence, which is our officer, to give us a report on it, please? Thank you, Adele.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. The application site is located on the southern side of Wash Road in Langdon, and it forms a part of the existing Portsea House Farm. The site is located immediately to the east of the settlement edge of Notebridge and is located within the greenbelt. So this is just showing
Chair,
the...
Chair, I can't hear it very well. I wonder if the mic can go a little bit nearer. I don't know if it's... They can't hear at the back.
Sorry.
I can hardly hear it myself.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay. Okay, so this is the site location plan. Red line shows the site application area. The blue line shows the area of interest of land ownership to the developer. The site is bound to the north by Wash Road and to the south by the Notebridge Nature Reserve, a local wildlife site, and beyond which is the South End Arterial Road. The western boundary of the site is defined by existing houses on Eastfield Road and the Nature Reserve. So we've got Wash Road along here. I'm not sure if you can see my cursor okay. Eastfield Road runs along this boundary. The Nature Reserve is to the south, and this is the tributary to the River Crouch. So the Basildon Brook, a tributary of the River Crouch, flows along the eastern boundary of the site, and a small area of the site is also located further to the east of the brook, and that's this area down in the bottom corner. This is just an aerial photo of the site with the red line showing on it. Okay, I'll try and speak as loudly as possible. So there are several fields within the site which are defined by mature hedgerows. The fields are currently used for light grazing and are mostly laid to grass other than an existing spoil heap. Hedgerows also buffer the site to Wash Road, along the brook and to the Nature Reserve to the south. So I've just got a few photos here showing the properties on Eastfield Road. The bottom photo shows just a photo within the site looking towards Eastfield Road. And these are the properties on Eastfield Road, which are on the western boundary of the site. And some internal photos from within the site itself. The Notebridge Conservation Area, designated in 1996, is located circa 130 metres to the west of the site at its closest point. Immediately adjacent to the northern boundary of the application site is Langdon Ponds, a well-preserved moated site with a Grade 2 listed 17th century house. Daniel's Farm, a Grade 2 listed 17th century house, is located to the west of the site on the northern side of Wash Road. This is just an aerial photo looking down onto Langdon Ponds. So you've got your Grade 2 listed house, and this is the non-designated moat within the site. A residential property Norfolk House is also situated immediately adjacent to the northern boundary of the site in the northwest, and the remainder of Portsea House Farm that is not included within the application site is located to the north of the site boundary. Portsea House Farm currently operates as a waste recycling facility, and the operator is preparing an application to surrender their environmental permit for the existing facility. At this time, the operator is continuing to facilitate the removal of a spoil heap from a field in the site to the south of the farmyard, at which point it is understood that the environmental permit will be surrendered. So the application is for up to 400 dwellings and a Class E community use facility. The application has been submitted as a hybrid, meaning that part of the application is in detail and part of the application is in outline. The proposal comprises a mix primarily of 2, 3 and 4 bed dwellings and will incorporate flats as well as houses. The application proposes 50% private for sale dwellings and 50% affordable housing on site. So this shows the phasing plan. So shown in red is phase 1, which has been submitted in detail, and then phase 2A in blue, phase 2B in purple, and phase 2C in green. Excuse me for a minute. So phase 1, as shown here, is in detail for the erection of 65 dwellings and includes associated landscaping, amenity and play spaces, parking provision, new pedestrian and vehicular access, sustainable drainage, attenuation basin and associated works. This is just showing the residential element. The other parts, as I'll show on the master plan, include the suds and attenuation basin as part of phase 1. So phase 1 also includes this area around here and the attenuation basin in this area. So the remainder of the application, known as phases 2A, 2B and 2C, as I showed you on the previous phasing plan, it's an outline with all matters reserved except for means of access, and it's for up to 335 dwellings and a Class E community use facility, including landscaping, informal sports pitches and spaces, amenity and play spaces, parking provision and vehicular access, sustainable drainage, allotments and associated works. So this is the illustrative master plan as shown on the screen, and it's been submitted to demonstrate how a total of up to 400 dwellings could be accommodated across the whole site, including the detailed phase 1. So a total of 81 letters of objection have been received by the Council from neighbouring residents, as set out at section 3.2 of the committee report. Other interested parties who objected to the proposal include Notebridge Parish Council, Notebridge Village Residents Association and Billericay Action Group, as set out at section 3.2 and 3.3 of the committee report. So this slide just sets out the key issues that I'm going to discuss now as we move through the presentation. Starting first with the principle of developing this greenbelt site. So paragraph 153 of the MPPF sets out that inappropriate development is, by definition, harmful to the greenbelt and should not be approved except in very special circumstances. Substantial weight shall be given to any harm to the greenbelt, including harm to its openness, other than in the case of development on previously developed land or greybelt land where development is not inappropriate. Officers consider that the site constitutes greybelt land as it does not strongly contribute to any of the greenbelt purposes A, B or D. As per paragraph 153, footnote 55 of the MPPF, development is not inappropriate. Paragraph 155 of the MPPF states that the development of homes, commercial and other development in the greenbelt should also not be regarded as inappropriate where it meets criteria A to D. In the opinion of officers, the proposal accords with paragraph 155A of the NPPF, as the development would utilise greybelt land and would not fundamentally undermine the purposes taken together of the remaining greenbelt across the area of the plan. With respect to criteria B, there is clearly a demonstrable unmet need for new housing across the borough, as the current 5-year housing land supply is only 1.88 years. With respect to criteria C, the development is in a sustainable location whereby sustainable modes of travel will be enhanced by public realm infrastructure enhancements and financial contributions secured. And additionally, safe and suitable access can be achieved for all users. And then with respect to criteria D, the proposal meets the golden rule requirements set out in paragraphs 156, 157 and 159 of the NPPF, in that 50% affordable housing is proposed on site, comprising 5% social rent, 50% affordable rent and 45% shared ownership. The proposal will provide the necessary improvements to local infrastructure, which I will discuss as we move through the presentation, and the proposal will provide high quality open green spaces and will open up the site for public use. In accordance with paragraph 158 of the NPPF, a development which complies with the golden rules should be given significant weight in favour of the grant of permission. It is therefore officers' judgment that the proposal should not be regarded as inappropriate development in the Greenbelt. However, should members consider that the development is inappropriate, paragraph 153 of the NPPF is relevant and the permission should not be approved except in very special circumstances. The very special circumstances are considered at paragraph 5.20 of the committee report. Officers consider that all of the harms identified, which include heritage medium-level harms, the harm to the local landscape character and setting, and to the openness of the Greenbelt and the loss of grade 3B agricultural land are clearly outweighed by the very special circumstances that have been evidenced in the application. So the residential parcels for the development have been designed to follow 4 key frontage character styles, which will ensure an appropriate and coherent pattern of the built form is followed throughout the whole development. These take the form of street edge, green corridor, parkland and mews character frontage areas as described at section 5.2.12 of the committee report. A design code has been submitted with the application, which incorporates a set of outline design rules and guiding principles which future development should be aligned to. It will inform future layouts and design, including materials, to ensure that high standards of design are delivered and should be used to inform the detailed design process and future reserved matters applications. The design code was prepared having regard to the draft Noakebridge Neighbourhood Plan Design Code. So the proposed dwelling heights in Phase 1 comprise a mix of 2, 2.5 and 3 stories with single-storey garages. Generally, 2-storey dwellings have been focused on the western side of the site adjacent to Eastfield Road properties, while 2.5 and 3-storey buildings have been used to emphasise corners and vista stops. The building height parameters for the outline phases also range from 2 to 3 stories. So just setting out the building heights in Phase 1. Yellow indicates 1 storey, those are garages. 2-storey in blue, 2.5 storey in purple, and 3-storey in pink. And this is just highlighting the building heights parameter plan for the remainder of the site. Yellow indicates up to 3 stories. The blue indicates 2 stories with up to 50%, 2.5 stories permitted. The green is 2 stories with up to 25%, 2.5 stories permitted, and the red is 2 stories with 1 3-storey block per area permitted. So the proposed external materials for the dwellings in Phase 1 will comprise a mix of red multi, buff and yellow multi brickwork, cream white and plum render and black and white weatherboarding. A mix of grey, brown and red pantile roof tiles are also proposed. So this slide gives you an example of the materials for phase one. There are two character areas within phase one: muse character and street edge character, and this indicates the nature of the materials, the primary materials that would be used. The external materials for outline phases will be considered at the reserve matter stage. However, the submitted design code provides guidance on materials for these phases having regard to the frontage character areas. The materials are of a similar character to those in phase one, generally being a mix of brick, render, weatherboarding and pantile roof tiles. Materials and treatments have been chosen to be sympathetic to the conservation area and maintain the character and identity of the village. And all dwellings will meet the nationally described space standards. It's considered that the design and layout of phase one of the development and the illustrative layout for the future phases, alongside the parameter plans and design code, would result in a high quality, well-designed residential scheme. So shown on this slide, this is the proposed play and open space strategy for the development, identifying specific areas of amenity. So coloured green, we have 12 areas of public open space communal amenity. Coloured orange, we have 3 local equipped areas of play, or leaps, and doorstep play spaces, and 9 local areas of play. And then coloured blue, a community green space comprising informal play and pitches. And coloured light blue, we have 2 multi-use games areas and 45 allocated allotment plots. And a comprehensive network of active travel routes for pedestrians and cyclists is provided in the master plan to facilitate ease of movement by walking and cycling. So this shows the illustrative landscape master plan, so it covers all of the phases of the development, just to indicate the sort of the green areas within the development. Okay, and this is just some illustrative sketches. The top sketch shows the entrance into the site from Wash Road in phase one, and the second slide shows the sort of feature parking area within shortly into the development in phase one as well. And these are some illustrative CGIs. These are taken from the green space, which is located to the north of the site, adjacent to Langdon Ponds. And again, another one taken from a similar area, just a different viewpoint. So whilst the proposal would result in some tree and hedgerow removals, the illustrative landscaping proposals indicate considerable new tree planting and soft landscaping, including a community orchard within the master plan. Approximately 320 trees will be strategically located throughout phase one to provide amenities, screening, shade and habitat. The illustrative master plan indicates a well thought out landscape strategy for future phases, and detailed proposals in terms of planting and the nature of that planting would be provided at the reserve matters stage. And the Council's Agricultural Officer has raised no objection to the proposals. So with respect to matters of impact on neighbouring amenity, the design and layout of phase one of the development has been well considered in relation to existing neighbouring properties on Eastfield Road to the west and Norfolk House to the east on Wash Road. The proposal is not considered to be detrimental in regard to matters of loss of privacy or overlooking for existing neighbouring properties, given the proposed relationship of dwellings and the inclusion of appropriate landscape buffers. It is of course recognised, however, that the proposed development will invariably reduce the views and rural outlook currently enjoyed by neighbouring occupiers adjoining the site. So this is just, sorry, it is a bit small, it's hard to see, but this is just to indicate that as part of phase one, there will be a landscape buffer along this western boundary of the site adjacent to the homes on Eastfield Road, and that will comprise a mix of both hedgerows and trees. So these are some sections that have been taken in relation to the western boundary of the site and the properties on Eastfield Road. And as you can see, in each case, there is this landscape buffer between the rear boundary of the properties on Eastfield Road and the rear boundaries of the properties within the development. Obviously, there are some angles and things that you can't really see from these sections, but it just gives you an indication that there will be this maintenance strip and landscape buffer in all situations, and then there's additional spaces between the rear boundary of the western boundary of the site and the rear boundary, the rear elevations of houses. Houses have been sort of turned, so in many cases where there is a relationship, they are looking onto an end of a house rather than looking sort of back to back. So I just run through. I've got a number of sections, and you can see in all cases there's this landscape buffer. So a daylight assessment has been submitted to demonstrate that the daylight and sunlight impact of the neighbouring properties surrounding Phase 1. This demonstrates that the impact of Phase 1 of the development on all existing adjacent surrounding properties is considered to be negligible. The internal daylight levels for the proposed dwellings in Phase 1 meet the BRE criteria with respect to sunlight and daylight. The detailed design of the outline phases would be assessed at the reserved matter stage. However, having regard to the illustrative master plan, the proposal would be capable of being designed to protect the residential amenities of neighbouring properties and meeting the BRE criteria internally. It is considered that any construction impacts will be temporary and that these can be adequately mitigated through a construction environmental management plan, which is to be secured by condition. So turning to highway matters, this is the highway parameter plan. It shows the main spine road running through the site and separate private drive, shared surfaces, informal footway and cycle routes. So the main access to the site here is from Wash Road. There's also a new link proposed here, which would access Eastfield Road directly opposite Bridge Street. So the main vehicular access, as I said, is off Wash Road, and it's proposed to be a simple 3-arm mini roundabout, as demonstrated here. It's similar in layout and design to the existing Wash Road, Eastfield Road mini roundabout, a short way to the west of this new roundabout. The existing and proposed mini roundabouts have both been tested and are predicted to work well with the full proposed development in place. A Stage 1 road safety audit has also been submitted in relation to the proposed mini roundabout on Wash Road. The access to the site would be made up of a 5.5 metre carriageway with a 3.5 metre cycle path on the west side, which joins the access road as it approaches the junction with Wash Road. In addition, there will be a 3 metre wide footpath to the west, which would connect to the existing footway on Wash Road at the northwest corner of the site. So this is your linkage to link up with the footpath that currently ends in this area. A proposed pedestrian and cycle access to the southwest off Eastfield Road, just north of the access gate to the Notebridge Nature Reserve, is to be designed as an emergency access for emergency service vehicles, and the access would be approximately 6 metres wide. We'll have suitable barriers in place to stop vehicular access on a daily basis. It's also to be a pedestrian and cycleway onto Eastfield Road, as I demonstrated on the previous plan. Swept path analysis demonstrates that a large car and service emergency vehicles can safely access and egress the site. The provision of car and cycle parking will meet the minimum parking standards set by Essex County Council. And Essex County Council, as the Highway Authority, is advised that from a highway and transportation perspective, the proposal was acceptable subject to conditions and/or Section 106 agreement to secure the provision of the proposed mini roundabout on Wash Road, vehicle parking to accord with the Essex Planning Officer Association parking standards, which is what Essex County Council use. Phase payment financial contribution totalling $1,050,000 index linked towards bus service enhancements along Wash Road, Note Bridge area to improve the frequency, accessibility and the routing to and from the site. As well, bus infrastructure enhancements to upgrade existing facilities on Eastfield Road in the vicinity of the Wash Road Junction, and upgrading of the curbing on the southwest side of Eastfield Road to facilitate bus movements at the junction. Bus infrastructure enhancements prior to first occupation of Phase 2C in the vicinity of where the proposed footway from Phase 2C of the development would emerge onto Wash Road to the west of Langdon Ponds. So that would be a new bus stop. The provision and implementation of a residential information travel pack, a residential travel plan and monitoring fee, and conditions are proposed in respect to a construction management plan, making sure construction, traffic and materials are clear of the highway, preventing the discharge of surface water from the development onto the highway, no unbound material to be used within 6 metres of the highway boundary. And these matters are all to be secured. Overall, subject to the highway and public transport enhancement measures proposed, the proposed development would be capable of being constructed without having an unacceptable impact on highway safety, or resulting in the residual cumulative impacts on the road network being severe. All reasonable future scenarios have been taken into account. So in respect of environmental health matters, as set out in the report, the Environmental Health Service at the Council has raised no concerns regarding noise, air quality and land contamination, subject to the imposition of conditions which are to be secured. As I mentioned previously, the operator of the existing waste recycling facility at Crays Hall Farm is preparing to surrender their environmental permit once the spoil heap on the site has been removed. The Section 106 agreement will require that the permanent cessation of the waste recycling facility at Crays Hall Farm occurs, and the environmental permit surrender prior to any development of Phase 2C. This is just showing the blue and green infrastructure parameter plan. Again, it's probably hard to see, but this is suds and swales running through the site. This is the attenuation basin, and there's further suds also throughout the site. So the Environment Agency map shows the western and central parts of the site are in flood zone 1, which is a low probability of flooding. Central parts of the site are in flood zone 2, a medium probability of flooding. And the eastern parts of the site are in flood zone 3, a higher probability of flooding. Essex County Council, as the lead local flood authority, has confirmed that they are satisfied with the proposal from a flood risk and drainage perspective, subject to conditions which are to be secured. The Environment Agency is also satisfied that the flood risk model is fit for purpose and provides an accurate representation of the flood risk at the site. Anglian Water has raised no objection in relation to surface water disposal. Accordingly, the application has adequately demonstrated that flood risk and surface water can be effectively managed through suitable mitigation measures. The application is supported by an ecological impact assessment which sets out the results of various ecological surveys that have been undertaken at the site. Essex Place Services Ecology has advised that they are satisfied that there is sufficient ecological information available for the termination of the application. They have also recommended conditions to secure ecological protection and enhancements, and this includes the provision of swift bricks. The conditions are all to be secured. The proposed development exceeds the 10% requirements in respect of biodiversity net gain, which came into effect after submission and validation of the application. Maintenance and monitoring of the biodiversity net gain for 30 years will be secured by Section 106 agreement. The site is located within the zone of influence of the European designated sites relevant to the Essex Coast Rams. Accordingly, a habitat regulation assessment was prepared by officers and agreed with Natural England. as well as on-site measures in the form of open space that will help to reduce the frequency of new resident visits to the Essex coastal sites, an appropriate financial contribution per dwelling towards the mitigation measures set out in the Essex RAMS strategy document is also to be secured by Section 106 agreement. With respect to matters of energy and sustainability, a condition is proposed requiring the submission of a detailed energy and sustainability statement for each phase of the development based on the principles set out in the submitted high-level climate resilience and carbon assessment, including details of the location and quantum of any photovoltaic panels and air or ground source heat pumps, inclusive of any associated acoustic protection details. With respect to the historic environment and archaeology, the site is not within a conservation area, nor does it contain any designated or non-designated heritage assets. However, the site lies to the east of Notebridge Conservation Area, as I mentioned previously. Historic England were consulted on the application, however they advised they did not wish to offer any comments. Essex Place Services provide the Council with heritage and conservation advice, and they provided detailed comments on the application. As set out at Section 5.15 of the committee report, it is considered that the proposed development would result in a medium level of less than substantial harm to the adjacent Grade 2 listed house at Langdon Ponds, and a medium level of harm to the adjacent non-designated heritage asset, the moated site at Langdon Ponds. Both of these medium level harms are, however, concluded to be significantly outweighed by the public benefits of the scheme as set out at Sections 5.15.14 and 5.15.15. In accordance with paragraph 212 of the MPPF, great weight has been given by officers to the harm caused to the setting of the Grade 2 listed building at Langdon Ponds and the moated site, regardless of the weight given to the harm. A program of archaeological evaluation and excavation is to be secured by condition. With respect to agricultural land, 75% of the site is classified as Grade 3B agricultural land, while the remaining 25% of the site is classified as non-agricultural land due to field ground and woodland. The loss of Grade 3B agricultural land in this case is considered to be acceptable, as the site is not considered to comprise the best or most versatile land for agriculture, which relates to the higher grades 1, 2 and 3A. Essex Police's Designing Out Crime team were consulted on the proposed development, and the developer has subsequently engaged with them to discuss the requirements for secured by design. A gold award for secured by design homes and commercial are to be secured by condition, the commercial obviously relating to the Class E community use facility. Okay. So as shown on this slide, this is setting out the Section 106 infrastructure contributions that the scheme will be secured as part of the scheme if planning permission is granted. So in terms of non-monetary contributions, the scheme is providing 50% affordable housing. That's 200 dwellings if all 400 dwellings come forward. A 56-place nursery in Phase 2C if a suitable provider can be found. Otherwise, a financial contribution towards early years and childcare provision would be provided. Bus infrastructure enhancements on Eastfield Road and around the junction of Eastfield Road. These are, as I mentioned in the transport comments, again, bus infrastructure enhancements for Phase 2C. On Wash Road to the west of Langdon Ponds. 30-year maintenance and monitoring of the approved biodiversity net gain plan. And then in terms of monetary contributions, this excludes the monitoring fees, which is travel plan monitoring fee and Section 106 monitoring fee and the Essex Coast RAMS tariff. What we are securing for Phase 1 is $1,649,672 and 25 pence, and that is as set out towards healthcare, employment and skills, bus service enhancements. That's the enhancements to the services rather than the actual bus stops themselves. Sustainable transport, LC WIP Plus, that's to improve local cycle routes. Education, primary and secondary provision. Open space, culture, play and sports provision. health and wellbeing, which is the council's local delivery pilot, and a new walk for the local nature reserve. On this screen, this is indicative monetary contributions for the outline phases of the development. As set out below, there's a bit of a caveat there for members to understand. The above figures are indicative only, as it will depend on the number of dwellings that come forward. Oh, sorry. Oops. Apologies. So it depends on the number of dwellings that come forward at the reserve matter stage. For the purpose of these indicative figures, officers have assumed that all 335 dwellings would come forward and that all dwellings are two bed plus houses. If some flats come forward, which is the likely scenario, then this would reduce the education contributions, as flats are calculated using a different pupil product. And officers have used the current IDP figures for the sustainable transport and open space culture, play and sports contributions. However, these contributions are subject to the IDP contributions which are in place at the reserve matters stage, so also are subject to change. So as highlighted here, contributions towards healthcare, employment and skills, bus service enhancements, which is 300,000, which was part of the figure that Essex Highways gave us, sustainable transport, education, primary and secondary, open space, culture, play and sports provision, health and wellbeing, which is local delivery pilot, potentially up to 5,790,650. Okay. And so this slide is just setting out the planning balance. So appropriate development of grey belt land and complies with the golden rules. That's given significant weight in favour. The council's own evidence-based limited purposes that the site contributes to the function of the green belt, significant weight in favour. Significant market and affordable housing, 50%, within a 5-year deliverable timeframe, and contribution to the council's 5-year housing land supply, which is currently 1.88 years, very significant weight in favour. Class E community use facility, moderate weight in favour. Provision of public open spaces, moderate weight in favour. Provision of public open spaces, moderate weight in favour. Economic benefits, moderate weight in favour. Environmental benefits, such as biodiversity net gain, moderate weight in favour. On the negative side is significant localised level of harm to the openness of the greenbelt, substantial negative weight against. And the medium level of less than substantial harm to the Grade 2 listed house at Langdon Ponds, and the medium level of harm to the non-designated heritage asset, the moated site at Langdon Ponds. And this slide is just providing a summary of the benefits that I've gone through as part of the application. So to conclude, in the opinion of officers, the proposed development constitutes appropriate development of grey belt land. The proposed development complies with the golden rules, carrying significant weight in favour of the grant of permission in accordance with paragraph 158 of the NPPF. The development is therefore not inappropriate. Given the acute need for affordable housing and persistent, extremely low affordable and private for sale housing delivery in the borough in the past years, the proposed housing provision for up to 400 dwellings and its delivery is strongly supported and carries very significant positive weight. The proposed development represents sustainable development in accordance with the adopted local plan and the NPPF, and is therefore recommended for approval, subject to no call-in powers being exercised by the Secretary of State, the completion of a Section 106 agreement to secure the planning obligations and contributions set out at Section 5.19 of the committee report, and subject to the conditions set out at Section 8 of the committee report, with any amendments that might be necessary up to the issue of the decision notice. Thank you very much.
Ahead of the meeting progressing, Councillor Myers has arrived in chambers, so I would like to ask him if he has any declaration of interest to make for this evening's meeting.
Yes, thank you, I do. Due to election leaflets and other press articles I've made on this site, I am currently predetermined, so will make no further contribution or make any contribution to this agenda item, other than in public speaking time, where I'm allowed to speak for up to however many minutes it is. But I will be taking part in the 5th item, as I have no declaration of interest on that. Thank you.
Councillor Myers, you may be aware that we are actually sitting on item 4. Therefore, could I ask you to perhaps excuse yourself from the committee and place yourself behind?
No, just leave it there.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. I will now open this up for the members for clarifications. Have I any points for clarification, please? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. So, Adele, could I just ask you some questions about this landscape buffer between the houses on Eastfield Road and the proposed site? So am I right in understanding that, I think you said that runs all the way down the back of the houses in Eastfield Road, correct? And to what degree is it opaque? Because obviously we can see it viewed from the side in those diagrams, but we can't actually see from above how dense the landscaping would be along the length of that buffer.
So there would be a combination along this boundary of both hedging and the green dots represent new trees that continue along, and also further down here. So there is planting the whole way along. I'm not sure if these obviously trees will grow up, but yeah, there will be a, you know, until it grows, obviously fully, then you know, there will be gaps, but you know, they'll be planted at sufficient spacing to allow for those trees to obviously grow. We have had some planting plans for phase 1. However, we have asked for the condition relating to soft landscaping to relate to all phases of the development, including phase 1, so that we can receive, as part of the conditions, detailed plans for soft landscaping. So we haven't approved those details as yet, and then so therefore there'll be opportunities for officers to interrogate those planting plans in detail and to ensure that a suitable landscape buffer is provided.
Thank you. So just to confirm I understood what you said correctly, there'd be a hedge running down the entire boundary between the application site and Eastfield Road, and there'll be trees planted along that boundary, that landscape buffer as well, at an appropriate gap to allow them to grow in due course. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes. As I said, we haven't got agreed planting plans as yet.
Any more points of clarification? Councillor Baker.
Um, so just sorry, Adele. Yeah. So second point, can you just confirm how much communal space there will be in terms of hectares on this site? Thank you.
Okay, so we have a couple of different breakdowns of space. As I referenced in terms of the open space and play strategy plan, which I put up on the screen, which is here. So this is showing specific areas of open space and play space. So we've got the combination of the public open space areas of communal amenity, the leaps and the laps in terms of play space, a community green space of informal play and pitches, and other outdoor sport and leisure, the multi-use games areas, and the 45 allocated allotment plots that comes to 2.978 hectares. As set out in the shadow HRA, which informed the Council's habitat regulation assessment, which was submitted to Natural England, and this is set out at section 5.12.15 of the committee report. There are 6.39 hectares of open space. So this was comprised semi-natural and recreational space, and was split between the detailed application area and the outline application area. So this 6.39 hectares, it includes the attenuation area, the ecology area, and some walking routes, but not the allotments. And so the applicant themselves, as part of their various special circumstances, outlines at 5.2.20 as a general summary of the overall publicly accessible open space within the site, some 8.3 hectares. So there is, a different breakdown of the different open spaces within the site. And, in terms of what's showing on the screen, these are, very specific areas, but there's also walking routes and other areas of, what we could just describe as open space as well.
So, and just to confirm, Adele, sorry, just a follow-up question. I am right in saying, aren't I, that at the moment this site comprises private land to which there is no public access or right-of-way whatsoever?
That's correct. There's no public rights-of-way across the site. There are further public rights-of-way more to the north of the site, outside of the site boundary.
Emma.
Thank you, Chair. Just a small point of clarification around paragraph 216 of the MPPF, around the medium level of harm to the Grade 2 listed heritage site, which is in the vicinity of the development. Would it be possible to get an idea of what that medium harm looks like in real terms? Or is it just something that we've had to factor in because of the policy framework? Thank you.
Just bear with me one moment while I just find the report. So, section 216 of the MPPF. So set out within the Historic Environment Office's comments on page 216. It says, with regard to the mooted site, what was paragraph 209, which is now paragraph 216 of the MPP of 2024, is relevant, which states that the effect of an application on the significance of a non-designated heritage asset should be taken into account in determining the application. In weighing applications that directly or indirectly affect non-designated heritage assets, a balanced judgment will be required having regard to the scale of any harm or loss and the significance of the heritage asset. In terms of sort of the medium level, I mean, it's very difficult to describe. I mean, you know, you could have a low level of harm, a medium level of harm, and a high level of harm, and this sort of falls between the two, as you would expect with the description of medium. I'm not sure how to otherwise explain it.
Hi. Would it help if I reframe the question? So, understanding that this is grey belt, because, yeah, and understanding in the updated NPPF that there's just one kind of factor that should be considered, which is heritage sites. I just wanted to know what the medium level of harm to that site would look like in real terms, or if it's just something that we have to put forward as a consideration because it is in the middle of where the development is proposed.
You cannot speak until it's your turn, so please will you be quiet?
Sorry, just going back to your question. Officers have looked at the medium level of harm in relation to, as they are required to do, in relation to the public benefits of the scheme, and it's considered that though the public benefits of the scheme outweigh the harm, the medium level of harm. There isn't, you know, it is a judgment. We're not talking significant harm. Obviously, there is a change to the surrounding outlook from the site. It's no longer going to be the agrarian fields and things like, you know, once adjoined the site. Obviously, it's going to be a housing site. The applicant, in this case, the architects have designed the scheme to pull the housing back from Langdon Ponds, both in terms of the moated site and the Grade 2 listed house itself. And as you can see on the master plan, there. So this is Langdon Ponds here. The housing has been pulled back considerably from the actual Langdon Ponds site, and there's been this green area placed in this area here to try and, you know, give some protection to those heritage assets, and therefore, you know, it's not considered that it's a significant level of harm. It's, you know, considered that there would be a change to the setting. However, that's not considered to be detrimental. I think you could say not to be detrimental to the non-designated heritage asset or the heritage asset itself.
Thank you, Adele. That is helpful and does answer my question in that it's a qualitative assessment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Callaghan. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. The bus service enhancements, is that for a period of time? Is that permanent? And when does it start? Does it start at phase 1 or does it start when it's finished?
So in terms of the bus service enhancement, so prior to first occupation of phase 1 of the development, the developer shall pay $750,000 to provide an additional bus for 5 years to increase the current bus service 10 to an hourly frequency between broadly 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday. And then prior to first occupation of phase 2A, the developer shall pay $100,000 to provide 1 bus for a 2-hourly service on current route 10 on Sundays for a period of 5 years. And prior to first occupation of phase 2A of the development, the developer shall pay $200,000 to provide 1 bus for a 2-hourly evening bus service Monday to Saturday on the current route 10 for a period of 5 years. So it's for a period of 5 years, and it's spread over phase 1 and phase 2A.
Okay, rhetorical question, but what happens after 5 years, we wonder. Construction per dwelling is going to contribute to the area. I think it's £1,000 odd pound. You said, is that in the affordable housing and the private housing?
Sorry, what?
There's an area where you mentioned that each dwelling will be paying towards the upkeep, etc. About 1,000 odd per dwelling, wasn't it? One of your final slides where you had the contribution from the households. Per dwelling. It equals a certain amount per £300 per dwelling, and so is that per dwelling, or is that just for the private, or is it affordable as well?
Sorry, I understand.
Right.
It's per dwelling, regardless of whether it's private or separate.
That's good.
So
okay.
All 335 dwellings, if they were building out like phase, would have to pay those contributions.
Thank you. On the, and I think I know, but open space and play space, that's one that you had up there. If you could get it up again for me, please. Where are you saying that the football pitches are going to be? I think I know what you're talking about, but can you?
So in this area here, the purple area.
So you're telling me that you can get 2 full-size football pitches in that area, or are you saying they're just goalposts that people can kick about in? Because you've actually put in the report football pitches, so people will assume that's football pitches, that's 2 of them, that's a huge area. So are you confirming to me now that that will take 2 football pitches, or are we just talking about someone just bunging a few goalposts in?
Yeah, so we've got informal play and pitches in this area here.
That's not what it said. It said football pitches there. I'm sure you mentioned football pitches.
I'm not sure that I did, but apologies if I did. I don't recall that. But it's informal play and pitches, and we've also, adjacent to that, we've also got multi-use games area as well.
Last but certainly not least, the planning balance that you mentioned earlier. If you go back to that one, please. The third one down, significant market affordable housing, 50% within a 5-year deliverable time frame will be the contribution. Are you saying that's guaranteed? They are going to build them within 5 years, or just or just an officer's speculation? What happens if the developer says we're not going to hit that, which means on that plan and balance that's an irrelevant one? So are we guaranteeing that that developer will take that amount off of our housing shortfall in 5 years?
Yes, that is what has been provided by the developer, set out at 5.20.7. They're saying potential work on site as early as June 2025. This would likely see first occupation of the dwellings by June 2026. So this is phase 1, the 65 dwellings. And with respect to the later phases, phases 2A, 2B and 2C, the developer has indicated the following program. Phase 2A to start on site March 2026, first occupation August 2026. Phase 2B, start of site March 27, first occupation from March 2028. Phase 2C, start on site from March 2028 with first occupation from March 2029. The developer has already been doing some trial trenching for archaeology, which they've been doing over the last few weeks. So that also helps show their commitment to the scheme.
And is there a penalty clause if they don't achieve that at all? If they suddenly say we can't achieve that, there's no penalty clause. That we can't put a provision in the recommendation that you'll be, if you don't do what you've set out, because you put it in there as a positive planning balance for us, a positive, and yet really it might not be the case at all, because we've got no jurisdiction over the fact that they say actually we can't do it within 10 years. You're just taking their word for something, unless I'm misunderstanding that.
Well, they need to implement the detailed phase of the application within 3 years, and then they've got they need to obviously submit the reserved matters with a certain period of time as well. So if they don't do that, then their planning permission would lapse. So they do need to get on with things quite smartly to be able to to keep their permission alive. So we're not able to put some penalty clause in or anything, as you may suggest, but certainly they need to meet the usual time periods that are on a planning decision in terms of implementing those permissions.
So I get most of them. I generally do, but on that one, to me, it's pure speculation whether they're going to actually achieve that or not. It's pure speculation, and that really shouldn't be in there at all, unless there is a punishment that you could give any developer, that is a case of if they don't deliver in a certain period of time. But it's just my view.
Can I just interject on this one? It's part of the positive, isn't it? Yeah. So if it's part of the positive, it should be something that we're saying that we want that done. But there isn't no way that we can actually, Christine, can you answer that?
Under the Levelling Up and Regeneration Bill, there was a clause in there that sought to put some penalties on developers. That was not carried into the Levelling Up and Regeneration Act, the one that had been enacted so far of that. So we will wait and see what the new government has to say on that point, because obviously the whole issue of delivery is key. And I think that the lack of delivery in our borough historically, developers are moving. I mean, all the schemes that have been granted so far to date have commenced. So I think the developers are keen to start building in the borough. And we've seen that Bloor Homes have commenced on their site. We've got Hill Group have commenced on their site, and David Wilson Homes just put the signs up on their site. So those three were all granted in the last 18 months, and they're already underway. The Bellway home site is just waiting for some initial work on that, but they're all started. What holds some of the sites up, and this is why the timescales are quicker as you get into different phases, is the fact that they've done a lot of the preliminary work in the initial phases. So phase one will be probably the slowest one to get going, because you do all the work, and that's the roads go all in by the time you get to your phase, and that's why phase 2A is come very quickly, because they'll have the roads in, they'll just basically be just carrying on building. I mean, based on this, you would expect the sites to come forward within the timescales they're saying.
I think what you're saying is it falls in the same clarification as the barrister told us last night about affordable housing. What we're actually waiting for is for the government to actually fulfil that and say to us, this is how it's got to be. Is that how I'm seeing it?
I mean, yeah. There's nothing in legislation at the moment that can force any local planning authority, and there's nothing we can do to put in a consent that allows that to happen. But I mean, inspectors across the country are taking the significant weight of additional new housing and affordable housing as very significant weight in favour of granting planning permission. So it's taken weight by the planning inspectorate, and obviously that is directly from MHCLG as well. So clearly delivering new homes is key to what we're trying to achieve across the country.
Thank Thank you. Are you happy with that? Sort of, yeah. Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, can I just clarify something on that? So if we're looking at this as a planning balance matter, then presumably if we don't proceed to phase 2, there will also be an impact on the negative elements as well. So the degree to which the openness of the greenbelt would be compromised would be reduced, and the degree to which this would impact on Langdon Ponds would also reduce. And in fact, if the scheme didn't proceed at all, then there would be no impact at all. Would I be correct in those 2 points?
Yes, that would be correct, yes.
Any more clarifications? No? Well, we'll go straight into the speakers now. And the first speaker we have is Councillor Terry Sargent.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm Terry Sargent. I'm one of the ward councillors for Castledon Crouch Ward. I urge the committee to refuse the planning application as inappropriate development because of very special circumstances that covers the green belt. Although the revised NPPF now classes some green belt as grey belt, it's no longer considering safeguarding the countryside from encroachment. However, green belt purposes are in place to protect unrestricted sprawl of large built-up areas and prevent towns from merging into one another. There are many sections in this report offering officer opinion. Nonetheless, the greenbelt purposes must be protected. I am shocked to read the Section 106 agreements and the projects and services it will support that do not meet the local need but pays for services that should be provided by Basildon Council. Over £1 million spent on bus service enhancements, infrastructure and travel plans when the money would be better spent improving infrastructure of the local road network and paths, not enhancing an existing perfectly adequate bus service. Totally inadequate Section 106 contributions for school places when Noakbridge desperately needs a school. Over $198,000 to spend on healthcare for upgrades in this area. The money must be earmarked for local provision where it is needed in Noakbridge and not South Green. Rule 3 of the NPPF Golden Rules requires high quality open space provision. Does this meet the Golden Rule? Because what I've been hearing this evening about the flooding and the swales and the attenuation bases, possibly not. I disagree with 5.18.29 of the report, which states that Basildon Council's Community and Leisure Services advise that Section 106 sports contributions of over $98,000 can be spent to provide play areas on the existing Noakbridge Village Green. The facilities mentioned are already earmarked by Basildon Council to provide through their play strategy, but they want to pass the cost of improving Noakbridge play equipment onto the developer, saving the council a whopping £100,000. Also, there is a proposal to resurface a car park in Crays Hill instead of Noakbridge. Goodness knows why this is. It's ludicrous to overdevelop a built-up area with 400 additional homes without any infrastructure that will completely change the nature of a semi-rural area in the countryside. This planning application expects local school children to be educated anywhere other than locally, but will provide a nursery that already has sufficient local provision. Healthcare is heavily pressurised, where seeing a doctor has become a thing of the past. Patients are now directed online to be triaged. How does that work when you're 80 years of age and have no digital knowledge? 6 years ago, the parish council had the sense, or so they thought they did at the time, to develop a neighbourhood plan in accordance with a Localism Act. The Act is supposed to give residents the ability to work with the local authority to plan the future of their neighbourhood for the better, to develop local plans and aspirations. The council kicked the plan down the road, causing a 6-month delay to legislative consultation. So much for support for localism for the local authority, from the local authority. For those of us who live at Notebridge, we know the local road network, which is currently extremely busy and congested best part of each day. It will not be able to cope with the additional traffic and congestion brought by this development. The residents will have to bear the brunt because the planning application makes no provision to improve Wash Road nor to provide pathways. This development is nothing but a desperate attempt to overdevelop a beautiful neighbourhood and turn it into a prospective ghetto. We all know houses need to be built, but this plan is to start to overpopulate Notebridge with over 700 additional homes without adequate service provision or infrastructure. Please, please refuse this planning application.
Thank you, Councillor Terry Sargent. Councillor Sargent, would you like to read out the MP's letter now? Oh, you're going to. Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair. In front of me I have the letter from the Right Honourable Richard Holden, MP for Basil and Billericay. May I apologise for not being able to be with you in person, but House of Commons is sitting today. While a Member of Parliament has no role in decisions on local planning, when contacted by local residents, I will always pass on their concerns to the Council's planning team. And when many local people and superb hard-working parish councils, like Notebridge Parish Council, approach me about a specific project, it is incumbent on me to send a message on their behalf, which is especially the case when it is targets from central government that are a large part of both the pressures and decisions being taken locally. The Wash Road development is one of a number that, if a local plan itself is adopted, would within a few years see the merging of Basildon with Notebridge, Noak Hill, the Bursteds, South Green and Billericay as a contiguous conurbation. The fact that this development itself is not included fully as part of a local plan for which the consultation was delayed is just one reason why this decision itself should be postponed. When it comes to local services, especially relating to access to education and healthcare, it is not clear to me how any of the much needed extra infrastructure could be provided by the Section 106 monies allocated. Moreover, it is unclear if the impacts on existing services have been properly considered, especially regarding local primary school places in Notebridge, which is already oversubscribed. At a time when Greater London is seeing its annual housing target slashed, I find it unbelievable that Councillor Callaghan welcomed the rise from 1,039 to 1,287, a rise of almost 25%, in the number of new homes that Basildon Borough will have to take every year under the targets from the new government. This will mean 3 developments the size of this on Wash Road thrust on our local community every single year. From a housing target that is not about meeting local need, but about capturing displacement that cuts the targets elsewhere, notably in Greater London. I urge councillors to consider all of these facts and the message they're sending to central government about their plans to concrete over our towns and villages when they make their decision tonight. Thank you, Richard Holden.
Councillor Myers for reading that out for Richard Holden. Can I ask Stephen Clark to come forward and speak, please? Would you like to come forward and... Just press the red button. Okay.
So I'm a resident of Notebridge and a member of a small group, the Noak Villas Residents Association, which represents the 10 houses immediately adjacent to this development site on Eastfield Road. And thanks for the opportunity to speak. I know we've only got 3 minutes.
yourself nearer to the microphone. Okay.
Right, I know I've only got 3 minutes, so I'll crack on, shall I? We have what's called a plan-led system in this country. A governing principle is well established that decisions like this one should be made in line with the local plan unless there are material considerations that indicate otherwise. So decisions like this one should, in theory, be predictable. This makes complete sense when you consider the word planning. A plan is something that's been thought out in detail in advance. So when we turn to this application, what does the local plan say? Does the plan make provision for housing on this land? The answer is no. So if our system is truly plan-led, how can you approve it? Add to this what the government says in its national guidance, that development on greenbelt land should not be approved except in very special circumstances. The decision becomes even more clear-cut. The only decision open to the council is to refuse it. Then you start to see the problem. You see how this planning authority has compromised itself. You see that the local plan here looks very old. It's dated 2007. You see there's a national housing shortage and that this planning authority has failed in its duty to respond, to do what planning authorities are supposed to do and come up with a workable plan to meet that housing demand. You see that the plans started, like these emerging plans that we see, are then later withdrawn, so nothing happens. You see government planning inspectors calling out the local authority as being the 7th worst out of 328 in housing delivery, and therefore allowing developments like this to proceed. Council officials admit in this report that they still can't demonstrate a 5-year supply of housing land. There's therefore been a failure in local engagement, in working out in detail the right places for new housing in ways that prioritise the release of brownfield land and therefore minimise, where possible, the inevitable harm to greenfield land and our environment. So applications for housing by frustrated developers are allowed to go ahead, almost by default, even on greenbelt land where we need those very special circumstances to overturn the clear presumption against development. But if we stick to basic principles, the only decision open to the council is to refuse the application because it's not in line with your local plan, such as it is. There'll then be an appeal, I'm sure of that, which is a good thing. Local people would at least then see due process in action through the Secretary of State's inquiry procedure. And this is, after all, a controversial development. There are big issues at stake here: health, education, local infrastructure, the environment. If you just take one of those big issues, this application claims that the building of 400 homes on fields like this will, and I quote, and the officials agree with this, not cause significant harm to the landscape, and they will not have an adverse ecological impact. It's claimed that there will be a net gain in biodiversity. Well, that just sounds like something out of Kafka. It sounds ridiculous, and it probably is. Let's at least be honest. Of course there will be harm here. In the papers, I can see that 2 councillors have commented on this application, and they at least have set out their opposition. I can only hope, and many others, that the councillors who make up the body of this planning committee agree with them, and not actually with the officials that are giving them their advice in this report. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Stephen Clark. Can I now call Jackie Downton, please?
I am Jackie Doughton, Parish Councillor for Noakbridge. It has been suggested that we do not want this development due to a not in my backyard attitude. That is not the case. We have many concerns, not the least of which is the lack of infrastructure when it comes to the road layout, which my colleagues will be addressing in a moment. Another large concern is air quality, which we know is already a concern in Essex, and the reason the Essex Air Consortium has been set up and is paying special attention to the Basildon Enterprise Corridor. Although the Environment Agency has accepted a study done in November 2024, this did not take into account the issues that we experienced in November 2022 when the road layout at the roundabout at the end of Wash Road was changed to allow a left-hand turn-only lane onto the A127 eastbound. This strongly affected the traffic flow on Wash Road, which was unable to deal with the amount of traffic, causing long tailbacks of idling cars queuing down past the Barleylands turning and greatly increasing air pollution. Within a very short period, the road layout had to be reversed. Without doubt, with 400 houses being built with their only access being Wash Road, this will multiply the problems we experienced in 2022 and air quality will be affected. Even the Environment Agency has stated that the majority of traffic will be travelling west. It must be the case then that the majority of traffic will be travelling down Wash Road, as this is the only road going west and the only access to the A127 west. Given the negative experience of the November 2022 minor road layout change, the congestion that will be caused by traffic from another 400 homes will certainly cause an issue with air quality, particularly for that section of the village that borders Wash Road. Also, to access the A127 west, traffic has to negotiate two roundabouts within approximately 100 metres of one another. Let us not forget it was due to increased air pollution that the speed limit on the A127 was reduced to 50 miles per hour, and it has been suggested that the Fortune of War roundabout should be removed for the same reason. With this new development of 400 homes only accessed from Wash Road, it will make Notebridge an island between what will become two very busy roads, and I cannot see how this is not going to greatly affect the air quality in Notebridge and have a knock-on effect with people's health. Surely the health of neighbouring residents must be taken into account when deciding on planning proposals. To allow a development of 400 homes to go ahead with the only access being a primarily farm road cannot be acceptable. Given this, we do hope your minds are not already made up in favour of allowing this development. Surely people's health must take precedence.
Thank you, Jackie. Can I now call, it was Richard Moore, but Richard Moore's not here this evening, and I was hoping he would because he sits on the Highways panel. Now, I want to ask Stuart Allen if he can speak.
The site is designated as Greenbelt at the moment, despite its inclusion in the draft local plan. Now, the Council's policy and National Planning Policy framework should preserve the openness of the Greenbelt area. Surely, as members of the committee, you've known of quite modest extensions of properties in the Greenbelt being refused due to reduction of the openness. But this development closes off an extensive area of openness, which adjacent residents have enjoyed for several years. The houses along the east side of Eastfield Road were built about 12 years ago on land originally designated as the eastern boundary of Notebridge, and they currently provide a defendable boundary to the village. The proposed development of the site in this application is in fact the start of an eastward sprawl of urbanisation which may be described as unattractive ribbon development along Wash Road. This type of undesirable development led to restriction of Ribbon Development Act in 1935, from which we've got these sophisticated planning laws we have now. On page 48 of the report, in paragraph 5.9, they've set out 5 points that the Greenbelt serves. I highlight point A is to check unrestricted sprawl of built-up areas, and point C, safety of the countryside from encroachment. To meet these MPP objectives, the Notebridge eastern boundary should be at Eastfield Road, and this application should be refused. These objectives are discussed on page 54 of the report in paragraphs 5.136 and 5.138, where the effect of this application is controversially minimised. In other words, it said it's not worth enforcing on that one. Furthermore, the proposal appears to be an estate-type development, isolated from and with no empathy or connection to Noakbridge Village. You've got in your papers there in your report reference to the Kennel Lane decision, which was an inspector's grant of some development at the edge of Billericay, and he said that development would not project any further southwards or westwards than existing built form, and would be consistent with existing settlement form, which is a reasonable assessment from an inspector. But in contrast, the current application site will make a significant eastward leap of urban sprawl and is not consistent with existing settlement form. In paragraph 18, the appeal states that the Kennel Lane proposal would have limited impact on the necessary check of unrestricted sprawl. In contrast, this Wash Road site positively invites eastward development of Noakbridge built-up area. I'm highlighting the difference between Kennel Lane and this one, whereas Wash Road proposal is an undesirable urban eastern development drift. The land use. The land is currently scrubland, which significantly contributes to greenbelt openness, but it could be developed as agricultural or pastoral land if required to make a contribution to food production. Not long ago, we have heard of food shortage risks caused by the invasion of Ukraine and problems with access to the Black Sea ports to export grain. It is prudent for the UK to identify and preserve areas for future agricultural development. The proposed residential development will generate schooling needs which cannot be satisfied locally. The Noakbridge Village School is oversubscribed and has no scope for enlargement due to the restricted site. This is discussed on page 14 of your report, Primary Education, with a direction to send primary school children to the distant parts of Laindon, where additional capacity will still have to be needed there. And similarly, the distant secondary schools in Laindon are full. In other words, you're asking the children from this development to go miles to get their education. Similarly, for health provision, the village GP practice is oversubscribed on a small site designed to provide for the original Noakbridge village. The village facilities will simply not be able to cope with the prospect of hundreds of new residents in various developments in Greenbelt around the village. Then there's traffic. Wash Road is the country lane, which has been heavily used at the moment. The edges of the road are vulnerable to deterioration with extra traffic. And the provision, and just as a last point here, the provision of a drainage pond and natural vegetation along the south and east sides of the development should be provided with available access and all-weather pedestrian routes connected to the existing nature reserve, which are close to the southern boundary of the proposed site. There needs to be definite pedestrian connections between these two, and the current arrangement for this development seems to make the natural provision detached in the development instead of enhancing both existing and proposed nature areas. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Stuart Allen. I think we have a remote one now, which is David Madewell.
Yeah, hi, can everyone hear me okay? Am I coming through okay?
Yes, we can see you now, thank you.
Perfect, okay. Thanks for allowing me to share my views on the application. I share and back similar views and objections from fellow residents of Noakbridge around this application, and are really just based on the lack of tangible additional infrastructure or tangible provision for public services. This situation is well known by anyone local to the area, but I wish to speak on more nuanced matters with my time. There are two documents which I will refer to. One is the air quality assessment carried out by WSP dated the 27th of November 2024, and the other is the Crime Prevention Advisor and Designing Out Crime Officer document dated 1st of March 2024. My property, along with a number of others, borders the land the scheme is due to be built on, 9.1 metres away in our case, as I can now see from the document shared. There are 23 receptors designated in the document as high sensitivity to the effects of the development according to their air quality assessment report, of which mine and neighbouring properties are included, in addition to other sites in Noak Bridge and surrounding areas. My overall main concern is for young children, including my 8-month-old son, living in the properties bordering the land and in other identified high sensitivity areas. It's not made clear what provisions or precautions are being taken to limit the amount of particulates in the air and the dust that children may breathe in, being metres away from active building sites. The report states in Section 8, the proposed development is predicted to have a negligible impact at all existing receptors. The overall impact of the proposed development on air quality is therefore considered to be not significant, which is very much focused on after completion of the development, with little or no consideration of the construction phase. Predictions for air quality during the construction phase are mostly focused on traffic. This shows in that the document also states in section 5.2 that there are estimated to be between 10 to 100 high sensitivity receptors within 50 metres of the site, designated a medium risk, and this is from dust soiling, then earmarking the need to follow strict mitigation controls, which are not detailed in any meaningful way in the report. There has instead been focused on a waste disposal facility and the impact on future theoretical residents of development, giving no attention to existing residents near the site. It's my belief that there is a high risk that this development will create a potential for statutory nuisances as per the Environmental Health Act of 1990 for the high sensitivity receptors which have been identified in the air quality assessment report. I would appeal that the Environmental Health Services team investigate this more closely. Lastly, as mentioned in the Crime Prevention Advisor and Designing Out Crime document related to the maintenance access pathway, the position of the access pathway could limit natural surveillance opportunities. Ultimately, when reviewing the planning document, this stood out to me very clearly, and I have concerns that for the general crime levels in the village, if an effective hidden passage is made available and not effectively secured or monitored, it could be exploited by criminals or people causing a nuisance. Thank you for your time and listening.
Thank you, David Madewell. Can I now ask Tony Gammer, Chairman of Noak Bridge Natural Reserve Society, please to come forward.
Good evening. 1989 I moved to Noak Bridge. In 93, plans to build more houses in Noak Bridge between Bridge Street and A127 on what had been countryside enjoyed by local people was met with strong opposition from many of us residents, including me, campaigning groups and wildlife bodies. Most of the housing was built, but Basildon District Council decided to create and maintain a 20-acre area as the Noak Bridge Nature Reserve. 1999, the Noak Bridge Nature Reserve Society was created to help Basildon Council maintain and improve the reserve for wildlife and for residents, which it's done. 2006, I became a volunteer. 2011, I became the treasurer of the society, and in 2022, I became the chairman. 2024, plans were proposed to build houses on fields that had remained apparently untouched for 35 years, with just trees, bushes and hedges, with little or no action apart from being fertilised naturally by the horses roaming around. I've learned from various sources over the years that wildlife ideally needs to be able to link with other areas for feeding and breeding for most forms of wildlife. The plans for building will block that free flow of various forms of wildlife, whether insects such as butterflies. Many birds and mammals also need cover from trees and bushes to travel safely. We sometimes see muntjac deer and roe deer in the reserve as visitors, and I have seen them crossing Wash Road from one site to the other. This will all be blocked by the planned development. Although they plan some hedges, etc., they will be separate and remote from each other and not continuous. The planned nature area is remote from any other natural areas around. They plan, with no consultation as far as I know, to create their own separate pedestrian access across the stream into the reserve, with no consideration about domestic animals from there having an easy route into the possible detriment of the wildlife that's currently in the reserve, or information that the Society currently maintains at the two existing entrances. And one of them is quite clear, anyway, close to that anyway. They also propose to take away the established parking area outside the existing double gates with their own emergency access that will be remotely controlled by bollards and will be wide enough for 3 fire engines to come through side by side. It's a big area that we use, and it's the junction of Bridge Street and Eastfield Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony Gamma. Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Chair, and I do apologise for my lateness this evening. There was a fallen tree on the Billericay line from London to Southend, so I had to get a train to Sheffield and then a bus back, which was wonderful. A lot of what's been said tonight I'm not going to repeat, but I would like to put this forward to the committee for a matter for deferment. There's a couple of reasons for this evening. Since the application was submitted and since the officer's report was given, with some of the infrastructure criteria not being met or not being allowed for, I found it not in keeping with the golden rules for all infrastructure for developments should be secured before being considered as grey belt land. So this evening I have had an email from Essex County Council saying they need a few more days to then reconsult to come back with what the library service is going to do for the £31,000. Highways are going to issue a new document, and also the Education Authority is going to discuss secondary and primary and give their full reasons as to why no further places can be found on site, including infrastructure for the current development in terms of small shops and potentially a pharmacy there in 400 houses. So I would ask the committee to defer it this evening so that Essex can come back to us with some further information in the next coming days, which I will then share with the officers. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Myers. Our director. I'm going to ask, could you reply to that about Essex County Council, please?
As you can see from the report, we consult with the County Council at various points in time. We consult with them at the pre-app stage, and we consult with them at the planning application stage. At all times we've had lengthy discussions about the requirements of education on this site, and the final response we've got is what's in the report, and you've had a chance to read that. That was the response. Essex County Council have had chance to review the report, because the report is printed 5 days in advance. So if there have been any challenges to the report, Essex County Council should have got back to us. So we've had none of that. So the requirements set out in the report are correct. In terms of the library contributions, we've had this discussion many times at Planning Committee. The library, and I've had the same response back from Essex County Council infrastructure team. In terms of you requiring infrastructure contributions, you have to place them towards a project. And on a number of occasions, we have said to the library service, can you tell us where you're going to be putting that money? If you can tell us what project you're going to be using, then we can look at that contribution. The SIL requirements are very clear. When we and as we've been through numerous appeals, we're very used to ensuring that all our contributions are SIL compliant, and we make sure that every single contribution we seek for developments, and hence the comment from Councillor Sargent with regard to the play space in Note Bridge that sits on our capital programme. That is a key development that needs to be brought forward in this area. 106 money will be used for that purpose. A project a key aim, it meets the requirements of this scheme, and therefore we can seek it. County Council just seeking a contribution at a level for something they can't put to a project technically does not meet the requirements of the SIL regulations, and therefore a local planning authority should not be seeking it as we're doing. We have told them if they can give us that information, we'll be able to seek that contribution. In relation to highways, the highway package here is considerable, and if you compare that to other highway packages we've had on similar schemes, it is considerable. And again, we've been speaking to the Highway Authority from the beginning of this process during the pre-apps phase right the way through to decision making, and they should have been again able to review this report 5 days after it was submitted. Any further issue they should have raised with us before we got to the committee tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Christine Lyons. I'd also like to say we had a briefing and we have this committee tonight, and we've got no one here present from highways again. So if there was a problem, I'm sure they'd come along. But we ask, as you know, Kevin, we ask time and time again for them to come to this committee, talk about infrastructure. We were lucky last time because we had them there for the briefing. So I'm sorry, but I've got to go along with what Christine Lyons has said. Thank you. Can I call Councillor?
Sorry, Chair. I was a public speaker on that item, so you were still in public speaking time, and surely you shouldn't have any clarifications on what I've been saying. It was only but I was asking for a deferment, and that shouldn't have happened.
She was a public speaker. You weren't a member of this committee, so you've had what you've said, and we've listened to you.
Oh no, I meant in terms of asking officers to clarify during public speaking time and then clarifications afterwards. Public speaking time should just continue.
The officer has now told you.
Good done it afterwards.
Thank you. Can I call Councillor Lynn Gillam, Notebridge Parish Council, please? Press the button in front of you.
Thank you. This site is poorly designed and overdeveloped, with most of the green space designated to the furthest east of the site. This design places the green space at the furthest point away from the existing development of Notebridge. The green space should surround Laden Ponds, a Grade 2 listed building, Eastfield Road, and a large area of green space should adjoin the nature reserve. Developing so close to the nature reserve means there is no opportunity for future growth. The nature reserve could benefit by the ability to expand towards the north. It would create a greater buffer to the traffic noise generated by the A127 and a much wider and safer corridor for wildlife, which is obviously displaced by this large development. The site should not have a single entrance in the northwestern corner of this site. This is just metres away from two existing mini roundabouts at Eastfield Road and Barleylands Road, which means residents are now navigating 3 mini roundabouts within metres of each other. Why isn't there another entrance exit in this development? Cost, I assume. The emergency route into Eastfield Road isn't an excuse to only have a single entrance exit in Wash Road. How can there possibly be public transport improvements along Wash Road? There is no footpath on either side of the road. You cannot walk along Wash Road to or from Eastfield Road to Pipshill Road North without taking your life in your hands. Wash Road is a tractor road that today is a rat run for vehicles to and from Wickford and Billericay to access the A127. We already deal with additional traffic at the weekend from at least 5 football clubs, the Equestrian Centre and Barleylands. This ensures we regularly join the we regularly join a queue of traffic to leave the village. We also have the recycling centre, numerous commercial enterprises that impact Wash Road now. What consideration is there for the additional developments
at Steepleview, Billericay and Wickford that will use this small rural road. The area will grind to a halt and the residents will find it impossible to exit the village. Can the GP service cope with this additional site? The answer is no. Why would you allow a development of this size and scale which provides no infrastructure improvement and deliberately restricts the growth of our nature reserve, when both could be resolved with better planning or a much smaller development? Is it simply about making money and our voices will be ignored? You have the responsibility to do the right thing for your existing residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn Gillam. Can I now ask Councillor Mark Cottrell from Noakbridge Parish Council to come along, please?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for letting me speak. So I wish to speak on this application as a parish councillor, but also in addition as a resident of Noakbridge for many years. Having read through the application and I've looked at the pros and cons, my concerns are fundamentally with the residents for Noakbridge, which does include myself. Some of the objections that have been raised by the residents, but are not limited to: loss of greenbelt, concerns over lack of junior and secondary schools, lack of GP and healthcare services, traffic management within the area and the infrastructure of the traffic, potential for more development to occur, which we have heard of more sort of applications coming through, potential applications coming through. Proposed development would not be in keeping with the Noakbridge design, we believe. I know it's been mentioned that it is similar, but I feel that it's not close to what we've currently got within Noakbridge. No clear buffer, and I think it was mentioned that the buffer's not been determined yet, so no clear buffer between Noakbridge, the current village and the proposed development. So these objections and concerns have been raised and repeated many times within the parish over the past 6 years. It's been mentioned that we have created a neighbourhood plan with full involvement of our residents. And we've been developing that for 6 years, and the idea behind it is to get all the residents' input and so that they can have a say in their village and where they live. The key feedback at these events has been, although everyone is fully aware and can understand that there is a real need for houses and for people to live, there is also a personal aspect where people want to be part of a community and be heard, not just be a statistic or a number and lose their identity by becoming part of a larger community. Residents also want to keep the green belt, the open spaces that surround our village, that make it the kind of place that we wanted to live in the first place, and not just lose it to become part of an urban jungle. I object to this application for various reasons, such as overdevelopment, lack of infrastructure, lack of doctors, schools, and as well as being built on the greenbelt. But overall, my objection would be that the views of the residents need to be heard and considered. Noakbridge is a community, a village. Overdevelopment may take this village feel away, and my fear is the community would be lost to an almost larger town with an additional 800 to 1,000 residents and the vehicles that would bring with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark Cottrell. Can I now call upon Dave Maxwell, a planning agent, please? If you press the button in front of you. Sorry.
Good evening, Chairman and Councillors. I'm David Maxwell. I work for WSP. I'm a planning consultant for Crays Homes for this planning application. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today to present our proposal and outline why we believe that this application should be approved. We're delighted that the Council's planning officers recognise the benefits that this proposed development will bring to the local area and are recommending approval. As you may already be aware, development of the site accords with both the previously withdrawn local plan and also the recent draft Regulation 18 Basildon local plan, which identified the site for residential for up to 400 homes. The proposed development will deliver up to 400 dwellings, of which 2/3 will be 2, 3 and 4 bedroom houses and 1/3 will be 2-bedroom flats. All new dwellings will provide an excellent standard of accommodation for future residents, and the development will be delivered by Crays Homes, an established house builder well known for creating homes of the highest quality. The applicant endorses the assessment by the officers that the application site does represent grey belt land and that the development therefore represents appropriate development. The development proposal complies with the Golden Rules. The proposal will deliver 50% of the homes as affordable housing. The proposal will also deliver necessary improvements to local infrastructure through delivery on-site of an early years childcare facility, as well as informal open and play spaces and accessible green space, allotments and an orchard all on-site. The development will also provide significant financial contributions towards enhancing existing public transport infrastructure, active travel, education and healthcare provision in the locality. The applicant has worked closely with and taken on board advice and recommendations from the planning and design officers, from statutory consultees, from Design South East through Design Review. The applicant has engaged with and taken into account the views and responses from the Parish Council and from local residents through public consultation, and the applicant proposes a detailed first phase of development for 65 homes within the northwestern part of the site, including pedestrian access from the new development to the west, linking through to Bridge Street and Eastwood Road. The proposed new homes will be in keeping with the existing character of Noak Bridge, whilst reflecting guidance from the Noak Bridge Design Code and the Essex Design Guide. The applicant has worked diligently to meet the requirements set by the Highway Authority, the lead local flood authority and the Education Authority. Basildon Council currently acknowledges there's a significant housing land supply shortfall. This scheme will deliver up to 400 new homes on a grey belt site with access to existing services and facilities. The proposed development makes best use of grey belt land in accord with the NPPF, delivering much needed market and affordable homes, together with local infrastructure and publicly accessible green space. As such, we respectfully request that the committee approve the application. Thank you.
Thank you, David Maxwell. I want to thank all the speakers this evening for keeping to their time limits. We do appreciate that, because when you've got a lot of speakers, it's a lot to get through, but thank you. I'm now going to open it up to members who'd like to speak on this. Is there anybody here that'd like to speak on this? Emma.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, I want to agree. Thank you for all the speakers this evening, and for the officers who've provided such a thorough report. I've got a few points to address. I've been listening to all the different points being made. I'd like to start with a point made by a very well-read gentleman in the public gallery, Stephen Clark. He's right that Basildon Council has failed to demonstrate its 5-year housing land supply. He's also referring to an outdated national planning policy framework. We all know one was updated in December 2024, which has changed things, and it does put increased pressures on local planning authorities to approve more housing, especially in places that have failed to demonstrate the 5-year housing land supply, as we have, and are constrained by greenbelt designations that were assigned almost 30 years ago. I think it's really fair to say that the new planning policy framework makes supply king rather than demand, because demand has become out of control. He's right as well. We haven't had a local plan. We've had ones that have been put forward and revoked by, various administrations. Thankfully, one is currently in development and forthcoming. The last local plan passed at Basildon Borough Council in 1998 and created Noak Bridge, So I think it's fair to acknowledge, you know, that everybody sat at the back of the public gallery, you know, they have benefited from a scheme such as this being put forward all those years ago. And we really need to look at the Section 106 monies that are incredibly significant. It's almost 6 million in total over 5 years. That's touching healthcare, employment, bus service enhancement, sustainable transport, education, open space, health and well-being. You know, we know that Essex County Council have systematically failed to invest consistently in Basildon Borough, and this goes a long way in reviving our tired old infrastructure. It also, you know, Councillor Terry Sargent, she raised the point of why should the developer be asked to pay for play area monies? Well, why not? You know, why stress the taxpayer when, you know, a private developer could come in with the money needed? That's not guaranteed at district borough level. I've listened to Councillor Mark Cottrell, you know, talk about a sense of community, which I do really agree is important to, you know, everybody here. But I've also heard fears that this kind of development could become an urban jungle, could turn the area into a ghetto. But really all I hear is accessible green spaces of up to 6 hectares. I hear about orchards, allotments, play areas, a nursery. To me, that's a community that, you know, anybody here would be, I imagine, content to be a part of. Richard Holden, the letter that came through, I know he's not from around here, but the A127 is a significant existing buffer between Basildon and Note Bridge to stop the two towns merging, and does a better job than any field would, I imagine. And I would say that there's a lot of scaremongering about seeing a GP. Terry Sargent, to quote you, seeing a GP isn't a thing of the past. You know, there's a process now that people don't like. It's digital, but if you have sickness, illness, or a sick child, you can get an appointment same day. And I would imagine that quite a lot of people in this room have experienced that. I had experienced this week when my 4-month-old son needed to see a doctor the same day. It works. The process is different. So the bus infrastructure, you know, that's a massive amount of money being put forward. And I would just say that it's going to help in a lot of ways. I would say that, you know, Councillor Myers wouldn't have got here without a bus this afternoon. Didn't want it, but, you know, it came into use. And I would say that improving our tired old bus infrastructure means that, you know, there's probably a big contribution to air quality that will have. Children will be able to travel across Basildon Borough to different towns to get to school, which they already do. And I would just say that the bus infrastructure is something that Essex County Council is in charge of, and we can't really rely on them to invest properly in this area. This development is going to directly invest, and it's going to benefit Note Bridge directly. I would say the most important part probably is the affordable housing. We know we've got over 3,400 people on Basildon's housing waiting list. If 200 houses are affordable, that will allow almost 7% of the people to get a shot of getting on the housing ladder with schemes such as Rent to Buy. We currently have 751 households in temporary accommodation. So we've had a briefing this week about this, which had quite alarming statistics. You know, 197 of those households are currently in mouldy B&Bs. Their average stay is over a year at the moment. I heard one speaker, you know, mention concerns about his 9-month-old son breathing in air from additional cars. I would just say that a lot of these families are living with their 9-month-old babies in cramped rooms and would definitely benefit from a great development like this being put forward. I think that the arguments around Greenbelt have been undermined by the updates to the MPPF. It is now Greybelt. And that's what I want to say, that I fully support this application. I think it's going to be a great development, as far away from a ghetto as can be imagined. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emma. Have we any other speakers? Alex?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I won't repeat any of the points that Councillor Callaghan's made. Why Mr. Holder keeps pointing out Councillor Callaghan in every letter he writes, I don't know, but it's not her local plan at all. but yeah, the one thing that I do want to pick up from a few of the speakers, including Councillor Sargent, is that the idea that there's no infrastructure that's going to come with this development. In this first phase, there's £1.6 million of infrastructure that's going to come with it, including £1 million improvement to Wash Road and highways. As Councillor Sargent pointed out, there's £100,000 that developers are going to be putting towards play areas, which will save your taxpayers' money, which can then be used to improve other things around the borough, which is fantastic. In total, if this full development gets through all the phases, then it'll be almost £6 million worth of investment to your local area. So that's the idea that there's no investment at all is frankly ridiculous, because it's a massive investment, likes of which we very rarely see for a development of this size. But yeah, other than that, as Councillor Callaghan pointed out, the reason there's no local plan is because your three councillors who are sat on the second row all voted to withdraw one a few years ago. But thankfully, this administration is working on one that will benefit the borough as a whole. But yeah, no, that's all I have to say, Chair.
Thank you, Alex. Any more speakers? Councillor Baker.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I will try and keep it brief as well and try not to be repetitive. But obviously, I'm conscious of the fact there are a lot of people here tonight, a lot of speakers, and I've listened very carefully to what they've had to say. But in summation, my position, having taken everything into account, is as follows. Firstly, I agree with the officer's assessment of this land as grey belt. I think that's correct. I also, in terms of their assessment of the balance of the planning position, I agree that is clearly in favour of the development. In particular, as has already been mentioned, the 400 very badly needed homes, 200 of which are affordable. With that, it's going to deliver the opening up of this whole site to public access, including, I think I'm right in saying, about 40% of the site being communal green space, and of course the S106 contributions, which are very substantial. The other thing I would say, I think, is obviously I've listened very carefully to what people have said. I can understand some of the points that some of the speakers have made, but to be honest, I haven't heard a robust reason in planning regulatory terms why I would object to this proposal. And I think that does lead on to a very important point, which is that we do have to have half an eye on this committee on what's likely to happen if the proposal goes to appeal. And I think it's reasonable to say that if this proposal goes to appeal, it would be approved, and that would end up with the council taxpayers of the borough being costed hundreds of thousands of pounds in legal fees. So that's not a reason in itself, but it's an important consideration. So for all of those points, I will be supporting the approval of this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Anybody else? Councillor Blake.
Yeah, just a couple of points. One of the big issues, as far as I'm concerned, was the air quality. If anybody's driven down there, when there's an event down there at Barley Lands or any other time during rush hour, it's horrendous down there. And you're talking about another 800 vehicles going to be going down there at a similar time. We was accused some time ago as an administration and as a government that we was going to impose a tax on people driving down the street because of the air quality. That's what we was accused of. We said we'd do our best to stop that. All you're doing is enhancing the possibility that could happen, but it'd be under a Labour government that happened. So we've got to get out of this issue of the air quality. It's a serious issue for the residents down that area. Richard Holden's been attacked twice so far. Poor bloke doesn't know where he's coming or going, does he? Really? But he doesn't live in the area, but he will do. But by the hell, he's been around this area an awful lot and got himself about and done exactly what an MP should do, representing us at Parliament and speaking up for his residents here today. The neighbourhood plan, the amount of effort and work and expense that you went through for the neighbourhood plan. And basically this just poo-poos it really, just totally ignores what you've actually been looking for and working hard. And as you say, quite rightly, Councillor Sargent, it should have been allocated a long while ago, but officers failed to do their duty on that, as we know. So on those issues alone, I shan't be supporting it. I still struggle. With this grey belt issue. What I would like to say, to be and put on record, to thank the officers yesterday for the briefing that we had on the green grey belt and the golden rules. It's a shame it wasn't done 2 weeks prior to the issue, development that we've done at Lane and Hills. But thank you to officers for listening to my suggestion to actually have the briefing, and it was much appreciated. So I just feel, in general, there are cases to actually refuse this application, and in particular, the infrastructure again. And this is where I will agree with Mo. County councils should be here. County councils should have their highways here to be challenged and they don't. They consistently don't do that, and I'll never defend them on that, and never have done. So, and it's just plain wrong that they do it. I do think some of the times when you hear that they're going to give money for health and for childcare and whatnot to build a place, the area, why didn't they actually decide in their plan to actually put a nursery into it so that the children can go somewhere, rather than say, we'll look for somewhere, if we can't find it, we'll bung some money at it. That's not the way the things should be done. There's a chance for them to actually put it in the actual plan itself, which meant the children wouldn't have to go, and the children that would be going there wouldn't have to travel miles and miles to go to a place where some money is going to be bunged at. It's wrong. I do have issues regarding the bus service as well, as I said to you. It's only 5 years. What happens after 5 years? It just pulls it. And as I also said earlier, I still do have issues about the 50% affordable housing. If they don't deliver in the 5 years, if they don't deliver, that there is no repercussions on them. They can say what they like here today, and any development, it goes for any development, I have to say, that they say we're going to do this, we're going to do it in 5 years. So put that as one of your good reasons to pass it. And if they don't do it, there's nothing we can do about it. And that's why one of the reasons, another good reason why I should be refusing this application.
Thank you, Councillor Blake. Have we anybody else that wish to speak to this? Any members? Right, well, I can speak now. What I'd like to say is, first I'll speak with Councillor Blake about the football pitches. And I know what you meant by that. You know, put goalpost up, that's football pitch. Well, it isn't. But we are lucky to have barley lands along the road there, because there's plenty of football pitches there for everybody. So, you know, I'm not too worried about that. Talking about the infrastructure, I think it was brought up at county yesterday, about 20 miles an hour for Noakebridge, which would cause, it would be better for it. I know nobody wants to do 20 miles an hour, but it does save to do with infrastructure. But it was refused by county, again. So there wasn't listening to what the people of Noakebridge probably wanted. 5-year housing, land supply, does not meet the refusal further criteria with the MPPF framework. Grey belt, very special circumstances, we know that. And the neighbourhood plan, I must commend Noakebridge for their neighbourhood plan. There was a lot of work went into it, and you know, it hasn't been passed yet, but it was very good and it was very informative to do with growth, openness, urban sprawl. I can understand it with Noakebridge. It is so unique. I've always said that. It's a very lovely place, but originally, probably many years ago, that was a farmer's field. It was a green belt farmer's field. Now there's lots of houses on it, you know, and we're all grateful that live on Noakebridge for having a house. And this happens when we've got lots of people in the country that need houses. But though we have no local plan, hopefully there's lots of consultations going out, and hopefully it will be passed and you can have your say. Go along or write in and say what you want to see in your local plan. It's no good not doing it because it won't happen. we must have good reason to refuse it, and we don't want to raise the council tax to a ridiculous amount if we was to refuse it. That's what would happen. The truth is we have to build new homes and accept this as change. It's sort of our problem. But as Councillor Emma Callaghan said, there's 3,400 people on our housing list, and it's not going down, it's going up. And like anything else, is, you know, why? Where do we put these houses? Wherever we want to put them, it's not in my backyard, thank you. And I was a part of that, because I had one recently at the top of my road. I didn't want it. And now I realise when people ring me up and say, we can't have a house in an area, we want to be with our family. And we can't offer that, but we can if we have the houses. I just want to say as well, my ward, I have 1,000 new homes, which is Dry Street. We all need to take our share, like Dry Street did. There's a lot of homes there, and it's very nice if you go there. There's trees, it's very pleasant, and I like it. Everyone at first, oh no, we don't want houses, because it was a pleasant little country lane, like Note Bridges, and we just don't need this. But we need houses. We want our families to stay in the area, but they're not going to stay in the area if we haven't got no houses. It's not a problem that pleases all. It's a conundrum, a real conundrum. But we have a local plan. All of you here tonight can comment on what you want in the local plan, because we never had one before.
Sorry, Mark, I've got to interrupt you there. As far as I know, the consultation's finished. Is that correct?
No,
So
no, it's not. There's still, you can still go and have your say.
as I understand it, the consultation is finished for the local plan, so I'm a bit confused for telling the residents to go and speak on the local plan. Just
No, they can write in still.
The current Reg 18 has actually closed. That closed second week in January. And obviously the next phase, there's another short consultation will happen in near future, and that's a limited consultation on some new evidence. And then there'll be a what's called a Reg 19 soundness consultation, hopefully in the sort of late summer of this year, when residents will have an opportunity to comment on the soundness of the last stage of the plan. No, because we've had all the comments already.
Well, we haven't actually approved it yet.
Mo, they can't speak on raise any concerns about the local plan now. The consultation has finished. Doesn't matter whether we've approved it or not.
Well, their councillors should have told them then.
We did. They've commented.
You did. Oh, you did. comment.
No,
Right.
you're digging a hole. Just
About infrastructure and everything else.
everybody that wrote in.
Right, stop digging the hole. Okay, they've wrote in. Okay.
Thank you.
You've
God,
got
mate.
your consultation, and I'm sure
Consultation
we will
is finished for
listen.
everybody, okay? It's
Okay.
finished.
So this application tonight, I've got to support because I want houses. I don't want 3,400 people on our housing list, because it's not going to happen. If we don't build the houses, what are we going to do with them? They're not going to go away. Most of them are second and third generation, and they need places to live in, like Dry Street, which is very pleasant. Thank you. So now we're going to the vote, if there's no more speakers. The recommendation is as follows. The planning application number 2301-551 out be granted planning permission subject to no calling powers being exercised by the Secretary of State. The completion of a 106 agreement to secure the planning obligations and contributions set out at section 5.19 of this report and subject to the conditions set out in section 8.0 of this report, with any amendments that might be necessary up to the issue of the decision. All those in favour, please show. Okay, I think that's gone through. Any abstentions? All those against? Thank you. Safe journey home if you want to leave. Thank you. You'll say, I'm sorry about that, but I meant, you heard the officer what she said. We can still say certain things. It's not been approved by council yet. Yeah, we'll have 5 minutes. Oh, please, thank you. My voice is gone. ready to go again? Unless I make some more mistakes, Councillor Blake.
It was a good one, though, wasn't it?
Was a good one.
Yeah, well, I can see one looking at it.
He was like, oh, well, they had the opportunity, but he didn't say it was my phone.
Right. We go into planning application, item 5, which is a variation of condition 2 to approve drawings, change of substation building dimensions on site of the planning application, reference 22002964, allowed at appeal. The construction of a solar farm. The proposed changes comprise of substation dimensions, changes and external variation at Crays Hall Farm, Church Lane, Ramsden Crays, Billericay. And I think that is you, Eunice.
Thank you, Chair, for the introduction, and good evening, everyone. So I won't repeat the proposal scheme, so I'll just go into the presentation. So here is an image of the site location plan. The application site relates to 2 parcels of land, the west of Church Lane, Ramsden Crays, Billericay. Parcel A, the most westerly site, and Parcel B, the most easterly site. The application site also stretches up in a northwesterly direction to Outwood Farm Road, Billericay, and the site area is 44.22 hectares in size and predominantly consists of open fields surrounded by hedgerows and trees. The application site is located within the green belt. This is also an aerial image of the application site. And this is an image of the site plan. So the site where the substation will be located is towards the northwest of Crays Hall Farm within Parcel A, and the exact site location can be viewed in the location plan to your left. Sorry, to the left of the screen. This is a more in-depth photo of the site plan. The substation is within the green box to the centre right of the image. Apologies for the image quality, but that is the site plan here. On this page we have the previous plans on your left and the current proposed dimensions on your right. The former area footprint was 12 metres squared, and the new footprint will be 21 metres squared. So there will be an increase of about 9 metres squared to the substation footprint. Here are some site photos as well of the area. And the key issues, as I've already outlined in my report, will be greenbelt design and impact on neighbouring amenity. So with regards to greenbelt, given that this application seeks relatively minor amendments to the already approved substation, the proposed changes are minimal and would not result in any significant additional impact on the openness of the greenbelt. With regards to the amended design of the substation, due to the modest increase in size and scale, the proposed development is not considered to adversely affect the visual appearance and character of the application site or the surrounding area. And with regard to impact on neighbouring amenity, given the distance of the substation to the nearest properties of Crays Hall Farm, which is approximately 18.80 metres away, and Parsonage Farm, which is approximately 23.78 metres away, the proposed changes do not give rise to any new residential amenity impacts. To conclude, the proposed changes to the substation in the context of the wider solar farm development are considered minor and raises no concerns in respect of design, will have will not have a detrimental impact upon the openness of the greenbelt and will not have any impact upon the neighbouring properties within the surrounding area. And it is recommended that the committee resolves planning application number 2401-202 VAR to be granted planning permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Eunice. Any points of clarification? Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
That's you.
No, that's you.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I consider that it's a minor amendment to the whole existing scheme, the actual building itself is to be increased from 12 square metres to 21 square metres. And of course, I've seen in the past with large properties sort of in Ramsden, etc., which gardens are in Greenbelt, where they have a pool and a pool house, and they want to extend the pool house by, say, from 120 square metres to 145 square metres. A certain percentage has to then take place, and it's refused on those grounds of encroachment in the Greenbelt, not over the whole site, just on that building. So I wonder why an increase from 12 square metres to 21 square metres is not classified as a minor change to the size of the building on its openness of the Greenbelt. Thank you.
So to reiterate the conclusion, the proposed changes to the substation in the context of the wider solar farm development are considered minor and raises no concerns in respect of design, openness to Greenbelt, and impact upon neighbouring properties within the surrounding area. With regards to the properties within Greenbelt that expand their dwellings, that would be in reference to, I believe, policy BAS GB4, which is in reference to dwelling houses. In this instance, we have a substation. So given the wider context and the size of the previous footprint of the substation being 12 metres, an increase into 21 metres squared would be considered minor in the wider context of the whole site area.
Councillor Blake.
Mine was along those lines. I could have understand if it had been worded, although this is a major increase, because 75% is a major increase, in the overall package it doesn't affect the development. I'd get that, because that's more, because it's a huge, anywhere else you put a 75% increase, that's a huge increase. It's not a minor one, it's not a modest one, it's a huge one, but the overall impact may be minor, but certainly not, in my opinion, or in anyone's opinion. You can't say that 75% increase in a development is not significant. But I do get what you're saying over the overall package. And why is the increase in size? I'm always sceptical. I'll be absolutely honest with you. People come in with an application to get this, and it's a small one. Yeah, we'll get it. You know, and their sole intention, right from the word go, is to have this huge. And I can see some nodding here. So I know I'm on the right. Like, all the way along, this is what they really wanted. They just we'll test the waters, get that, and then we're banging for another one, because it's only the officer, I'm sure, they were put in it's only a modest or minor, rather than a huge one. Just.
Yeah, thank you for your clarification. I'm going to answer first your first point about the sort of minor increase in size. So with openness to and impact on Greenbelt, in the MPPF we would, as officers, assess obviously the openness, impact, and visual aspects. And in paragraph 160 of the NPPF, it states that when located in the Greenbelt, elements of many renewable energy projects will comprise inappropriate development. In such cases, developers will need to demonstrate very special circumstances if projects are to proceed, such as very special circumstances, which may include the wider environmental benefits associated, such very special circumstances may include the wider environmental benefits associated with increased production of energy from renewable sources. And your second point about why the substation was increased in size, the reason being is because during the original application, the developers proposed in their drawings a generic sort of dimension for a substation. Obviously, that was within the original application, and the original application has been allowed an appeal now. So the developers have come back because they wanted to amend that drawing of the substation because of the fact that they had been given direction from the district network operator, or the DNO, of what they expect a substation to sort of look like, or the specific dimensions of a substation for that site area. So they didn't have, the developers didn't have sort of direction. The DNO now have sort of given the developers a specific dimension for the substation, which is why they've come in with this new variation of condition to sort of clarify what the dimension of the substation should be. So if I go back into my presentation, that's why, you know, the left is significantly less detailed than the right image.
So it seems like when they put the first application in, they weren't fully briefed of what they actually needed. Yeah. That comes across to me. Is they put in an application, test the waters, really not knowing what they actually did want. Won it on appeal, then got told what they actually should have, and decided to come back again. That's how that looks to me. It sounds to me. Just I'm always sceptical about people coming in with once they've got the plan of admission, but that just seems they didn't know what they was doing in the first place.
Any more clarifications? Councillor Baker.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm really sorry to extend this further, because I feel like this ought to be really straightforward and kind of isn't turning out to be so. Sorry, Eunice, I've got no idea from what you've shown so far where this is or what's surrounding it, and it makes it almost impossible to make the judgment. I don't know if there's anything else you can show us other than what you've already seen, but I can't work out what that means, or certainly not from here.
So which aspect of the drawing?
I cannot interpret the map at all to have any idea where this substation is versus whatever else is in the area. Sorry, but shall I go over and look at it?
Yes, Councillor, that's correct. So I apologise. The area of the substation is significantly small in comparison to the context of the whole site area, but is within that sort of yellow circular marker. I don't know. To me, it seems. Tell me what you're using. That bit there. That's again.
Yes, sorry, no further questions. Chair, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Councillor Myers, I can understand what you're saying, because people in Greenbelt, if they want an extra sort of few 100 metres on their property, they're told no. And yeah, so it does seem unfair. Yeah. Okay. Now we'll bring it into committee. Anything? No?
Just to clarify some of the points, really, I can't understand why, you know, where someone with a lot of land has got an outbuilding. I know this is a tremendous amount of land where they're building these solar panel farms, and yet there's a substation they need to build, which is tiny compared to obviously what they now need by the DNO. and now as new plans come forward. But however, if you've got a, you know, for example, at Ramsden, a garden that's, you know, nearly sort of 10 acres, and you've got an outbuilding out there in Greenbelt, and you want to increase it by 30 square, you know, nearly a third of its size, it's refused, and that's a large bit of land. It's, you know, and that's their back garden. This is an open fields and surrounded by, you know, it's going to be near all the solar panel farms, etc., which is now allowed through the through some of the energy reviews that have been going on. But the actual building itself still has to comply with the openness of the green belt, and I can't see how increasing size from 12 square metres to 21 square metres is not considered inappropriate. So for that reason, I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Anybody, anything else? Alex?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, I do accept that Councillor Blake's points the most, that it is bad that a developer doesn't know what they're bringing when they first bring it forward, and then feel the need that they have to change it after they've got all the information, which it looks like is the case with us. From obviously I haven't spoken to the developer, so I can't be 100% sure on that. But at the end of the day, if they need a substation that's 21 square metres in order to for these solar panels to work, then refusing this evening will mean that the solar panels will, you know, not get the substation that they need and will not function. And so, you know, the overall, you know, the overall application that came a few months ago, you know, it has been approved and has gone through. And so, voting against this evening would just, you know, basically reverse the decision that's already been made on the solar panels, effectively.
Councillor Blake.
On that principle, if they come back with an application saying we have to have it 5 times the size, would your principle still stand on that one? Because the principle is it would have failed. If they can't produce a solar farm, what you're saying is they got carte blanche to build whatever side they want by what you just said.
What I'm saying is that's not the case, though, is it, Councillor? This is not an increase of 9 metres, not 900. Well, then we'll be able to discuss that if that does happen. But I'm confident that this will be exactly what they need for this set of solar panels.
Any more? No? We can go into the vote now. I mean, we don't want any power cuts, so these...
It's about the size of the building in the green belt. It's not about power cuts.
All those in favour, please show. Abstentions? Against? Okay, it's carried. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's been a long evening. Thank you very much. Good night.